Welcome to the Easton School Committee, Tuesday, June 9th, 2020 at 6:00 p.m. In keeping with the ongoing emergency order from Governor Charlie Baker to limit gatherings and maximize social distancing, and under legislation passed to address remote board meetings during the emergency declaration, this meeting will be conducted remotely over Zoom. Attendance by board members will be remote, and remote attendance shall count towards quorum. The meeting will be broadcast by ECAT either live or will be broadcast by ECAT live and will be recorded with a version as soon as possible after the closure of the meeting. To use Zoom, you will need to download the Zoom application at www.zoom.us and create an account or use one of the call-in numbers listed on the agenda. You will need the webinar ID to join by phone only. While conducting meetings remotely, we will endeavor to keep meeting operations as close to our standard procedures as possible. However, use of this platform will necessitate some additional meeting protocols. While the board members will be on video and audio, public participants will join the webinar as attendee, meaning they are muted and with no video feed from them. During the public testimony portion of the meeting, members of the public can be recognized by using the raise hand function found under participants from Zoom or make requests with Q&A function. If you are joining only by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. Before making comments, please state your name and address for the record. As in any public meeting, indecent behavior will not be tolerated, and anyone who uses use of the meeting platform will be terminated from the meeting. All votes will be by roll call. When all business indicated on the agenda has been completed, the members will vote to adjourn the meetings, signaling the end of the meeting and the ECAT recording. To begin with, I'm going to make a motion at this time to bring number 6, public comment, up to number 2. Do I have a second?
O'Neill, second.
Okay, all those in favor?
O'Neill, yes.
Durant, yes.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
Thank you. I believe there are a lot of townspeople here tonight, and that's why we're going to put public comment first. You can go to Q&A, or you can do the raise hand, and we'll have the person that's in charge of that give us the question, give us your name, or let us hear your questions or comments.
We have one comment from an anonymous attendee that says, "Hi, Caroline."
Hi,
Okay.
whoever you are.
Okay, so maybe we'll start. Dr. Cabral, do you want to begin with what the school department has been doing at this time, and then we'll get other comments as we go along? Do you want to do that? Because we don't have anybody coming in, right? Chrissy?
No, I don't see any questions at this time. There's a hand raised. From
Okay.
Nicole DeCenzio.
Does she have a comment or?
So I think that has to be clarified, that if there's a question or a comment, you need to type it into the Q&A section of the Zoom meeting.
She's able to speak right now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Hi, so do I state my name and address? Is that
Yes, please.
Nicole DeCenzo, 1 Janine Drive, Northeastern. I just wanted to comment that in the upcoming school year, there's been a lot of discussion between alumni of Oliver Ames and the Easton Public School System regarding the climate that we are in nationwide, demanding racial justice and civil rights. So I just wanted to comment that I think that it would be wise for the school committee to make an investment into demanding an anti-racist curriculum, and investing further into anti-racist and anti-bias training for teachers and educators, and also for independent resource officers.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, does anyone want to comment on that or reply? Okay.
Any of us, or are you looking for an audience member?
No, I was looking to our group and you.
Sure. So we have we have been working the last 2 years on this issue. We've actually actively begun this work, starting with our strategic plan. So when I became the superintendent, we came about a new strategic plan, which I'm just looking for right now. We did push this out. We have been communicating it in many different forums, whether it's through students, our staff, it's how we organized our professional development days, it's how we've determined how we're going to be doing our funding going forward. And I think this speaks to the speaker's concerns. We certainly share them, and that's why we made it part of our strategic plan. That is available on our website. It has been there if anybody wants to look at that. That is something we're very concerned about communicating. And we've been trying to do that. And the more that we can have people share that, the better. So we would love to work together with people to help us get that information out. Some of the things, for example, training and materials were brought up, so I can address those. In terms of training, we have had partnerships with many resources. One is the Anti-Defamation League. We created a partnership with them 2 years ago, and they spent this school year at Oliver Ames. They provided a peer group training for volunteer students who have done a phenomenal job. We felt it was very important to empower students to be able to have conversations with their peers, in addition to just hearing teachers or administrators talk about this. We wanted to make sure we empowered our students. We know that they are extremely articulate and intelligent, and we wanted to give them that vehicle. So the ADL has been working on this peer program with them for the past year. It actually moves to the middle school next year. And students have been peer leaders throughout OA, and they have started speaking to some underclassmen about these issues, about white privilege, about social injustice, about prejudice, about sensitivity, cultural sensitivity. We also had staff training on the same subject, also from the ADL. I participated in that as well. It was extremely well received. It was very enlightening for all of us. We've been incorporating it into our daily work. We also provided that training or similar training to the community. We invited parents in the community to attend, and again, we had great reception to that work. It continues. We're at the very beginning. We acknowledge that. One thing that we are encouraged by is that part of this, we made quite a commitment with the ADL to participate in a study that Boston University was conducting on the efficacy of the ADL peer program. So we entered into a partnership because we felt that it was important that we don't just disseminate information. We want to measure if it's working and if it's not working, and what we can do to make sure that we improve this area in all of our buildings and really in our district. So we entered into an agreement where our students were surveyed. We received some baseline surveys of our students. Unfortunately, due to the closure, we did not get the full year of information, but we're going to continue with that work. And we are going to follow the data to make sure that our efforts are in fact working in our district. In terms of other trainings that we've offered, we held an equity series this year. We had international speakers Dr. Tyrone Howard, Jimmy Cassis. We had Christy, I'm forgetting her
Yeah,
name.
we had Joanna Silverman.
Thank you, Joanna Silverman. We also had representation of the LGBTQ community. We've also done a lot of outreach in terms of the community. I started a superintendent advisory committee, which I am so thankful for the community support on that and the number of people that have been participating with me. I think it's been extremely productive. We talk about these issues regularly. I was working on superintendent advisory committee action steps with them. We had great momentum going and wonderful ideas. And again, the closure has stymied that, but it certainly hasn't stopped it. We talk about many stakeholder groups. We do talk about race and equity. We also talk about religious groups. We talk about, again, our LGBTQ community. We talk about our students and community members with disabilities, and create a forum so that people can share suggestions, recommendations. It's truly advisory in nature, and it only works with that participation, which is why again, I'm so thankful for the students, the staff members, and the community members who have been working on that with me. I also opened up at the middle school and high school an age appropriate drop-in, and I've been having those for 2 years with students. And again, to create an opportunity for students to reach out to me directly about concerns that they have. And we have talked about many topics. Sometimes, we talk about things from, why did you put that in the newspaper? And then I have to kind of explain how that works. And we don't usually get to put out what's in newspapers. And all the way to, do you have any pets? Which is great, because I'm really trying to create that relationship with students. They see me as a person and as a trusted adult that they can confide in about things. We did talk about back when there was some writing on the wall at Oliver Ames. We were able to discuss that immediately because we had a lunch scheduled there. In terms of partnering with some community groups, we work with the Human Rights Committee and Raising Multicultural Kids. In fact, Raising Multicultural Kids, after I started the Superintendent Advisory Committee, was really a very interested group of people that wanted to be engaged and to work on the committee. But the Superintendent Advisory Committee, of course, is for many stakeholder groups. And so it became a separate organization, which we have been just delighted to work with, and feel that has been a great partnership in offering model mentors to our students, reading materials, and so on. We've shared resources and information really well. In terms of curriculum, we have a team of more than 20 teachers that have been working on reviewing all of the curriculum, reviewing all of the materials in every class. We have already hired and been working with a woman named Teresa Moore, who works with us on anti-bias professional development, and she has been with our curriculum leader team the staff that I mentioned, been going through all of our materials and resources. We've had staff voluntarily pick up from their training, really want to be more engaged in this process. They've had book study groups. We've had book study groups so far on white fragility, on waking up white. We provide all the materials for staff to have these very important conversations. I'm sure that Assistant Superintendent Chrissy Pruitt can add in anything I'm not thinking of off the top of my head, but one of my superintendent goals, actually my superintendent goals follow the core values and the strategic plan, and one of them decidedly is about the diversifying our staff. We've been working very hard on that. Last year I conducted a survey of Massachusetts superintendents to try to share best practices in that. We've attended several career fairs, again, unfortunately cut short this year by the closure, but it's things we're actively working on. I've engaged superintendents in other states and talked about things like teacher swap programs, where we can have teachers from our building go to their school for a year, their teachers come to our school. So we have a lot of things going on. I'm not sure, Chair, if you really wanted me to get into that much information. I was just trying to address things like curriculum and instruction and training that were the things that I heard. But if there are other things, I can certainly address them. Now, with that said, I think before you add anything, Chrissy, I just want to say, with that said, long way to go. These things are not, you don't change an institution or systemic insufficiencies in a year, or in this case, 2 years. 1 year was a complete planning year. We have almost 600 staff. We have 3,600 students. And I'm actually encouraged, to be honest, at the progress we were able to make in our actions this year. It's never going to be enough until it's finished, but through people's input on our various committees to what I hope is an indication of the comfort level of people reaching out to us directly to tell us about things or assignments or resources or stories, we are able to then address every single one individually. And that's really the only way we're going to be able to accomplish this on the scale that we hope to. We have actually, at our very young stage of this work, become a model in the state, which I don't take as a source of pride, actually. I think it's an indication of just where the state is at. I think it's very sad, actually. But we are, while we're focusing our efforts on Easton, we've been sharing the information and all of the work that we've already done to try to get it out there as much as possible, because we want others to benefit from what we have been able to accomplish. Even though, as I said, we are in our infancy. That's how I always describe it. We're in our infancy of this work, because it takes a tremendous amount of time. If you imagine every single grade from pre-K to 12, every single subject, every single classroom, every single level, it's a lot of work for us to go over in the midst of our regular daily work and things like COVID and social emotional health of children and so forth. So this is an absolute priority for us. I hope that I'm hoping that people will take the time to go and look at the strategic plan, look at the superintendent goals, and really hold us accountable for them, because we worked very hard on them to make sure that it incorporated the work that we know needs to be done. And we need the help of our community to help us do that. So we want people to participate in in the trainings that we offer. We want people to recommend resources and information to us. That's how we get a lot of our best information. And we want people to give us feedback when things aren't right, because we know things aren't right. And, clearly, Chrissy and I, for example, we're not in every single classroom. We're not on every single lesson plan. So we don't think that it is, indicative of us trying to catch anybody doing anything. It's more, it's education. That's our business, is education. We need to make sure our people are properly educated and have the resources that they need to do the work that we know they want to do. And so we know that that's our responsibility. I always refer to our district as an inverted pyramid, and people like Chrissy and I are at the very base of that. And so we understand our responsibility of being able to support everybody appropriately. And so we hope that, like I said, engagement like this, this is fantastic. And I'm sorry I'm going on, because now I see a couple questions and we do want to answer them. We put public participation first because it's very important to us that we hear from people.
I was just going to share that we have 7 questions and 2
Great.
hands raised. I just wanted to add that when you look at our strategic plan, you'll see that we have 4 objectives, and underneath each objectives are priorities. And I don't think the links under the priorities are live, but each to the public, they are to the staff right now. So we can change that, but each link has an action plan. So with action steps underneath. So for example, in educator excellence, one of our action steps is to develop and recruit diverse educators. with varied educational and professional experiences. And that has a 3-page, an action plan underneath it with timelines. So these are things that we are held accountable for. That was just one example. So I just wanted to share that with anybody that goes onto our page to look at our strategic plan. So do we want?
I can answer questions, but I'm hoping I answered Ms. DiCenzo's question, and if not, I'm hoping she'll put that in the chat. An anonymous attendee, so I think it's the chair's position that I skip those, but I think if they would like to go back and put their name and address, I can answer that, and I'd be happy to. So if you'd like to do that, we just have to have you on the record for the public meeting. Jeremy Temaleo, 13 Calvin Road, is saying, for the coming year, is the school committee planning on reevaluating the OA History Department's policies and curricula regarding racial injustice, the history of race in America, the world, and the mock Constitutional Convention's history of racial insensitivity? I think I answered that. We definitely are doing that. We are embroiled in that work right now. We have committee members on the curriculum leadership team from our History and Social Studies department. I know their high school department chair is here. I don't know if he'd wish to speak to that specifically, but certainly he has the opportunity if he would like to. I just have to do my technology here. And
He's here. He just has to unmute himself.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can, Matt.
Hi. So I would like to address Jeremy's point by kind of reading a little bit of what I responded to a few people already.
Matt, could you just say your name, please?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Matt Auger, 5 Brookside Circle, Social Studies Department Chair.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. So one of this particular simulation that was brought to my attention asked students to address the roadblocks for creating the Constitution. And one of those roadblocks was slavery. And so while it's an indisputable fact that slavery is wrong and shouldn't have existed, the reality is it did. And so during the simulation, students are asked to look at the Constitution and understand the big issues in its creation. And the reality is the fact that they didn't end and abolish slavery at the Constitution led to the Civil War. And so we teach slavery as it leads to, and the lack of abolishing it leading to the Civil War. But we also look at the fight of abolitionists to end it. We look at Reconstruction and failure of Reconstruction, legacy of slavery. And we spend a lot of time trying to understand all of this so that students can see the clash between those fighting for equality and the white supremacy that uses hate, violence, and fear to stop that equality. That fight's ongoing. And I know that in my department, that's something that we all try our best to convey, looking to get better. And I know that we all could get a little bit better. And so we're not going to do this assignment anymore. Clearly, it has not met its goals. The goal for us is always to challenge students to think about why things are the way they are, understand what happened, but also how things could have been different. And we fell short of that goal with this project, so we won't be using it anymore. There's not a single doubt that slavery shouldn't have happened. And so we try to have students see the greed, prejudice, and oppression that allowed it to continue. And as a department, we're already looking to reevaluate our materials, our readings, our lessons. That's something that's been ongoing already. I know some of that work has already been done and some of the work needs to continue. As Dr. Cabral said, there's a long way to go, and we look forward to the challenge, and we always appreciate community involvement and ideas from the public, especially our alumni.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt. there's a question, a couple of anonymous questions, and you can tell me, Chair, how you'd like me to handle those, but there are others with names, so I'll go to those first. Jane Martin, could you talk a little bit about the challenges of recruiting a diverse workforce and what we try to do to meet that challenge? Yes, that's something I have spoken about publicly at multiple school committee meetings many times. And as I said, I made it an accountable goal of my own as the superintendent of schools last year. I have been working on this for a very long time. This is the first time I've actually been in a position like this in a suburban school. My education is in much different, more diverse environment, and I just have always felt like it's a great loss to the community to not have that diversity reflected here. So I've been actively working on this for quite some time. We have, as I said, for example, I will ask people, you know, what can we do better? How can we fix this? One of the meetings I remember at the Raising Multicultural Kids, one of the many meetings we've had, I asked them, you know, I attend these recruiting fairs. How can I be better at this? What do you recommend? And one of the participants very honestly said to me, I'm not going to your table as a person of color. You're not a person of color. I'm not going to your table. You know, and unfortunately we don't have, it's like a catch-22. We don't have the staff available to help us recruit the staff we want to have. But they help me problem solve. They volunteered to go with our staff to these career fairs, which is an example of a perfect way to identify a problem and participate in helping us solve it. That's an example of a problem I can't solve on my own. I can't change that about myself, but I can have others help me do it, and they did, and we're so very thankful for that. We have had, as I said, I did a survey in the state to find out other hiring practices. I'll be honest, most responses were, we have the same exact problem. Please let us know what you come up with. I did learn about some programs, though, that I did look into. I also was introduced to some superintendents out of state, historically Black colleges and universities, reach out to them. I've met with the heads of Stonehill and Bridgewater State in terms of the pre-service programs and how we can encourage others to attend those programs and how we can recruit them. We started last year, at Oliver Ames, trying to encourage our own students even to pursue education as a career. We traditionally, a lot of schools have athletic signings, you know, when a student athlete signs with a college or university. And so now we've started that for our own educators. When students commit to attending a college or a university to education, we highlight that, trying to make it more desirable for them. We have also, I've met several times with the Commissioner of Education in Massachusetts, and we've been advocating for things like loan forgiveness for people of color who work in other districts. Right now, there are things like Pell Grant and Perkins Grant where many people of color benefit from them, but they are then required to work a certain amount of years in a high needs, not rural.
Urban.
Urban district.
Urban.
Thank you. A high needs urban district, which of course there is a need for that. But what I have tried to explain to the commissioner and to our legislators is that there's a hidden need with communities like ours. And so our students are not benefiting. The system has unintentionally made it so that it really diverts a lot of these qualified candidates to the urban centers, and we don't have the opportunity to hire them. So I have tried to talk to them about creating some loan forgiveness programs for them, some tuition forgiveness programs, about reworking the way they do certifications at the state level so that people can qualify for certifications differently. This work is slow going though. I mean, we're working on it every day, but it's behind the scenes and a lot of people don't know about it, but it doesn't mean that it's not happening, but it's very difficult. And we're always, again, looking for ways to make it happen. We have asked people who, I've done exit interviews for people who are leaving our district. You know, a lot of times the first thing a candidate will do and what they'll tell me is that when they are researching a school district to go into, if they're coming from out of town, which to be honest, we don't have a very diverse community in Easton. So chances are, if we are recruiting candidates who are diverse, they are from out of town. And what a candidate will tell me is that in my research on this, that they will immediately research the community that they're going into. And, you know, they'll take a look at social media posts. They'll take a look at different things in the community. They'll visit the community. They'll go into businesses. They'll frequent restaurants. And it's something that I've talked about a lot with raising with the Human Rights Committee, is that this is bigger than just a school solution. It's really something we're committed to working on with the Human Rights Committee at the town level too, is creating a town that seems as though it's welcoming and it's diverse and it has things to offer our colleagues and our colleagues of color. So we are working on that together. We do have to come to a point where we, once we start hiring some candidates who are more diverse, who can then help us recruit other candidates. But it's that tipping point that is very difficult to reach. But it isn't for a lack of trying, but that means nothing. I just have to keep trying, and we have to keep trying, and we have to work as a community, and we have to work as a leadership team. And but anyway, those are just some of the things that answer that question. Some of the challenges and some of the things we've been doing to try to address it.
Just so everyone knows, we have 21 questions. They keep coming in, and we have 3 people with their hands raised.
Okay, the ones that are there, I'm looking at them, and a lot of them are the same questions and anonymous. So I think I'm going to skip those unless they want to go back to their name, or they are different, unless the chair instructs me to do differently.
Yep. Now,
for example, there's a question here. Please correct me if I'm wrong. So there's a question here by Rachel Clark, 23 Collins Mary Way, Easton, Mass. What is EPS doing to hire more HBCU graduate educators to teach Black history at EPS? So again, I think I answered that question, but if I didn't, please let me know so that I can. So that's what I mean by a question that I believe is repeated, but I'm happy to revisit it. Is there a way?
Dr. Cabral?
Yes.
Can I just also add that if it is identified in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that hiring teachers of color is a challenge. In fact, the commissioner has a page on the DESE, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education website, that is strictly focused on this. There is one for recruiting superintendents with racial and ethnic diversity, as well as fellowships for people that are of color that are interested in becoming teachers. So this is something, not only an issue here in Easton, but it is also an issue throughout the Commonwealth, as Dr. Cabral stated before. But if anybody would like to go on the Department of Education's website, they will come across the same issues as well.
And as far as speakers, Chrissy, I believe you have Liz and Kelly in our chat here. So
yes, I'm making them panelists right now.
So if they
and I'm
would
trying
like
to go in
speak.
order. I see Kelly is on here, but I'm just trying to be respectful of the order of these. I think, but again, I think what plans are in place to recruit teachers of color? Do you have groups? Do you have people of color on your advisory and work groups? Yeah, the Superintendent Advisory Committee. Yes, absolutely. Kelly Lamb, she may want to speak about this. She's giving a comment to remind us of a program that we've
Right.
started in collaboration with RMK, but I think that she perhaps might want to discuss it herself. If not, Mrs. Lamb, I'm happy to read it.
I'm happy to talk.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
So my name is Kelly Lamb. I'm one of the co-presidents of Raising Multicultural Kids. And just when Lisa was talking about the issues the school district has been facing in trying to get more teachers of color, we started trying to help because 92% of teachers in Massachusetts are white. So this is not a problem that Easton is going to be able to solve. So one of the things we did, my daughter had experienced multiple racial incidents in school. She's 100% Dominican, very dark skin, and she had 3 separate incidents with 3 separate kids. And one of the things she asked us for was she wanted a brown teacher in her classroom. And we couldn't provide that for her. So one of the teachers, Ruth Bluestone, I'm sure a lot of you may know her, she adopted her daughter, Hannah. And she said to us, I think Hannah would love to come down. She wants to go to college and study early education. So this would be a wonderful experience for her. So Hannah came down and supported Kitty for the rest of that year. And it was amazing. So when we found out that this was a roadblock for Easton in hiring teachers, we decided to expand that program. And before everything shut down due to COVID, we actually had 17 classrooms with diverse students in there at least once a week. Some classrooms had students in there 3 times a week. And we actually started getting more teachers that wanted to participate, and we couldn't even keep up with the demand of getting students. So we were working with high schoolers going to Parkview just because of location, they could easily get there. But then we were working with college students to have at Morrill Hall, RO, and Center School. And we were in the process of recruiting more students when everything sort of shut down. But that is a program, if we can come back together in the fall, that is a program that we will have back. And so, I mean, these are the kind of things, this is great conversation to be having, because we need people to kind of be creative thinkers and come with solutions and ideas. And raising multicultural kids is a way that we can raise money and we can resource these things. We can bring in expertise, and we can have a whole group of community members and teachers, because teachers are members as well, dedicated to just these issues.
Thank you. There's a question from Abby Bryan Jones, 270 Center Street. As a Black student that's currently attending Oliver Ames, I still experience racism at school from my peers constantly. I think that there needs to be something in the curriculum that is directed specifically toward these students and addresses their unconscious biases. Superintendent Cabral mentioned that you are educating your staff on things like white fragility and privilege. And I think that the students of Oliver Ames need that training just as much as the teachers. I also think that Black history, aside from just slavery and the civil rights era, should be taught in our history classes during Black History Month and even outside of that month as well. Abby, you're 500% right. We've been actively having these conversations, and I am so appreciative that we're having these conversations with you right now. We need this kind of engagement year round. We need these ideas. We need this information. We do think it's very important for students, of course, and as Mr. Auger said, we are going through the entire curriculum and every single resource in the district. But we feel as though it's really important, and we have training for students. Somebody earlier asked if it was mandatory, or can the ADL training be mandatory? It is mandatory. It's not mandatory to be a peer leader. That is something that obviously a student would choose to be engaged in, but it is mandatory to participate for the students. Their peer leaders for other students. We didn't have the seniors do it this year because they were leaving the school, and the idea is for it to be replicated over time. And so if you are a senior, perhaps you may not have had that in your classroom, but the underclassmen did, and it's a program we really hope to grow and establish over time, because we absolutely agree with you. Yes, we're working on Black history vigorously, and we really want the participation of parents, groups like RMK, the Human Rights Committee, students. The reason that, we have student lunches, and the reason that I have students on superintendent advisory is because your voice is so critical to us. It means everything to us. And we want to hear from you. We want to make sure we're in your buildings and that you see us and that you know we're approachable, and that, mean, that's why I make a fool out of myself on Twitter all the time, because I just want to, I want to be approachable to kids. I'm not somebody in an office far away that isn't aware of what's going on and doesn't want to know what's going on. We really do, and we want to address all of it. I hope I answered your question, Abby. I hope you'll be engaged, and I hope you'll help us. That is something, you know, we absolutely want to work on.
So just to clarify for, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to interject here. Mr. Auger, do you have anything to say to Abby that might help? You got to unmute yourself. Unmute. There you go. I don't know. I don't want to put you on the spot. I didn't know.
No, you're not putting me on the spot at all. I've actually, you know, during all of this, this closure, it's been really difficult, you know, not being able to meet in person with colleagues. But I can tell you that I've had lots of conversations with members of my department, even before the post on Saturday, and just with everything going on in the world, and also with the changes that we're making to our curriculum. Now, I know I've presented before the school committee before, but I know there's a lot of other people here who might not know this. But the Massachusetts changed the history standards, and we're actually moving U.S. history to grades 9 and 10. And grade 8 this coming year is doing civics. And so we have a big opportunity to meet some of these challenges head on. I know in grade 8, while they're doing civics, they're going to be learning about the Constitution. They're going to be learning about civil rights, and that this conversation is going to be a big part of all of those curriculum and lesson creation conversations. And then at the high school level, you know, we are very conscious of the fact that we are not perfect, and that we are, you know, really doing a lot of soul searching and realizing that some of the things that were implicit and explicit in what we were doing needs change. And so I can tell you that those honest conversations are starting and happening, and, you know, some of those had already happened in the past, but they're going to continue happening in the future.
Thank you, Matt.
And we do have
Chrissy?
people with their hand up. I think we're going to answer, there's just a couple more questions that are new, and then we can go to people with their hand up, perhaps. I'm sorry, Chrissy, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say that the ADL program, the peer mentor program that is happening, they've also met via Zoom since the closure, and they are going to, I think they're putting up a social media site to support students through this time. But also, I know that all of the freshmen, the peer mentors went into the freshman classes, and Mr. Auger, I know that you had experience, or your department had experience with that, because they went into your freshman classes. I don't know if you want to share anything about that, but the feedback that we got from students was that they were it was very powerful and moving. The teachers do not step in. It is all student led. And what it does is it empowers the students to create their own voices and have the courage to stand up to injustice, and also to have conversations when they have questions. And I know it's a very, very powerful program. And like Dr. Cabral said, unfortunately, we weren't able to see the closure of it for this year, but it will continue next year. And they do have plans of moving into the other grade levels as well. But this is something that I know that we're very proud of, because of all the training that comes with it, and that this isn't a reaction to just what happened with the tragic, awful death of Mr. Floyd. It's actually a result of other issues that have come up and the need that we found throughout the district. So I just wanted to clarify that.
I'm so sorry if I say this incorrectly. For someone who has an unusual name, Leisha, I really like to say people's names correctly. Marae Namer, I'm sorry if I'm sure I'm saying it wrong, and I apologize. If there are only going to be 10 kids per classroom requiring more teachers, could this be an opportunity to hire more teachers of color? As I said earlier, we're always looking to hire more teachers of color. But I just want to quickly clarify, we have not, the commissioner sent out information to superintendents recently about supplies. It was not about opening in September. So he sent information to us that went with it that said, this is not to be taken as how we're opening school in September. So I think a lot of people misunderstood that, but since the guidance came to us, we received that clarifying information with it. So we never thought that that was how schools are going to be open in September. That is really that's far away right now. And so we really don't know what to anticipate. There is guidance coming out from the commissioner later in June, probably around the 15th to the 20th. So we don't have that yet. So that I just wanted to, I know that part doesn't have anything to do with this, but I think that's an important misconception many people have. I don't want people worrying about that just yet. Shireen Glover, 12 Mechanic Street. In my daughter's 12 years in Easton, she has not had a Black teacher. That's a long time of Easton trying. We agree. I can't speak to 12 years ago. I wasn't here, but I can't speak to it specifically, but we agree. Are there plans? Sorry. Every time I go to answer, it moves up because there's a question. So I apologize for looking lost. Rachel Clark, 23 Colleen Mary Way. Does EPS have any plans or strategies to educate students on HBCUs? Yes, absolutely. Our guidance department is part of the work that we're doing, letting children, young adults know about that information as well. Okay.
We also have Liz Bornstein here. If she would like to speak, I'd like to let her have a minute, some time to talk. So we'll hold up on the questions for a minute and go to Liz. Hi, Liz.
Everyone. I am the current chair of the Human Rights Committee, and we do work with the schools as well as the police and all the other important stakeholders in town, from the library to the Y to any other institution. Caroline has served on our committee. Michelle is our current representative on the committee. Our purpose and goal is a little bit broader than just the schools or just the issues addressed by Raising Multicultural Kids. But we meet monthly. We are actually having a meeting on Thursday at 5:30. The information is on our website with Zoom information. And we are looking over the summer to move forward with a plan we've had in place to get more specific information from the community so people can hear what everyone in Easton is experiencing. Some people might very truthfully be saying, look, I haven't encountered any issues regardless of how I might identify, and other people might very truthfully be saying, well, here are some of the issues that I've experienced. So I would always encourage people to reach out to the Human Rights Committee with concerns, or to share information or to hear what we're doing, but also to talk specifically within the schools if you're experiencing issues within the school, and similarly within the community, your first point of contact should be the police.
Thank you.
Thanks, Liz.
Masa Kembabe is asking, what can we do as a community? What can we as a community do to ask the legislature to institute a loan repayment program? If they hear from many people in different communities, it might motivate them to act more quickly. I agree with you. I would love help with that work. She's from 3 Harlow Street. We would very much love help with that work. I agree about the loan repayment. We've actually considered incentives, salary incentives for people to come here as well. Unfortunately, we're in a really difficult way here in Easton in terms of our budget, and so we haven't been able to institute such a program. But we've tried that too. Shireen Glover, can you create a question and answer document with all the questions asked and answered today? I don't know. Does this print out? I haven't.
Well, this is on, it's being recorded, so I'm sure
okay.
you could go through and get that.
Okay, got it. More diverse teachers, yes. Cameron P. There's not an address. Would it be okay if I read it? Or,
Sure.
Okay.
if you think the question is
Well, I
appropriate.
haven't read it. Do Easton schools or the school committee work with similar committees from our neighbors with more diverse communities? Yes, actually I do, often. In fact, I mentioned already, I work with superintendents outside of the state as well.
And the school committee works with MASC, which is all over the state. So it's quite a variety of communities that we work with.
Yeah, frankly, my personal background is 20 years in urban education. So frankly, my go-tos are all of my resources in those communities. So I always go to them first just by default because that's my experience. But yes, I've absolutely been doing that. We have been working with them actively. Okay, I'm not forgetting about the hands raised, Manny Ramirez. I'm sorry. I'm trying to make sure we hear everyone. Cameron P again, sorry. Do you feel like Easton schools are receiving the funding they need to retain and implement positive programs? I don't know how to answer that unless you go back and look at every budget meeting I've done since I've been here. We are grossly underfunded. Grossly underfunded. How have Easton voters failed in the past in these budgetary terms, and how can we better advocate for funding for our schools and community health programs? That is more of a, I'm not a resident of Easton. That's more of a resident question. I can tell you what our schools need, and I do every single year. You can go back and take a look at any of our budget presentations that are available on our website or on ECAT. I advocate for them strongly, and then whatever we are given by the state and the town is what we work with. And we will always provide the best education possible with every penny that we have, and we will always be creative and make things work the best way that we can. But we do not, we have structured our budget in tiers, and those tiers are a reactive budget, regressive budget, a reactive budget, a proactive budget, and a strategic budget. And as long as I've been in Easton, we have been in reactive or regressive. We are in a very deep regressive budget this year. We have just reduced many, many positions, which is coming up soon in the budget conversation. Maria Montero, 8 Janet Road. I was one of the RMK members that attended the Teach a Job fair in Milton. She means that she's one of the ones that assisted us, and I am greatly, greatly appreciative of that. During the fair, we had a lot of very good minority candidates that submitted their resume. Has any one of them been evaluated? We have evaluated all of the resumes. When we look at a resume, unless it's noted on there, we don't know if a candidate is a minority candidate by looking at the resume. So if there were notations made, then obviously we would investigate those quite vigorously. More teachers, but it keeps moving. Emma Sharkansky, 16 Flint Lane. Is it being considered to phase more diverse teachers in as current teachers retire? Again, I think I've answered that. That is, we're actively pursuing that. So I hope I didn't miss any, but I do want to get to the raised hands, if that's all right with you.
Yes.
Chair?
Yes.
Chrissy, it's Kelly. Can I just add something in? I know people are looking for things to do. I'll turn on my video. One of the things, so DESE put out new standards for K through 5th grade. And when Chrissy and I were going through them, I was like, no wonder why all of our kids are growing up colorblind, right? We don't talk about race or racism until 5th grade when we start talking about slavery. And even then, it sounds like it's the thing of the past, and, you know, slavery and the civil rights movement, you know, made everything equal. And so we do our kids an injustice, right? That our white kids are, you know, going through life not really knowing how to even have conversations about race and racism. And that needs to change. And there's absolutely no guidance from the state on that. And so if people want to contact DESE and let them know that this is a problem, right? In our district, we took it upon ourselves to write our own social justice standards for K through 5. And now we're looking to resource teaching to those standards because we need new books and new materials. Another thing people can do is contact your state legislators, because there's an unrecognized disparity in white communities in this area. We have like no education. when it comes to race and racism. And we're trying to change that, but we don't have resources, right? A lot of times we push all these resources into the Black and brown communities. And I think that sends the message that the problem exists there, right? But the problem exists in our predominantly white communities and our kids not being educated properly. And we need to start throwing some resources here as well. So please, those are two things you can do at the state level to help us get this work done.
Right. Thank you very
Thank you,
much for that.
Kelly.
I just want to remind people, the state standards, yes, we're required to do them, but the way we talk about it in Easton is they're the floor and not the ceiling. So as long as we cover them, we augment it in any way that we feel is important. And this is obviously one way. So we do have those identified areas in grades K through 5. And we are adding them to our curriculum. Would you like me, I have 4 people with their hand raised and I can have them speak.
Caroline has her hand up.
Caroline,
I just
Caroline,
wanted to comment on what Kelly said. First of all, I'm so grateful to you, Kelly, for all that you've done, but you've made available so many resources for parents and you've made many recommendations. And it's very clear to me that these conversations with all children need to start at age 2. So 5th grade, Kelly's exactly right, is way late. So I just wanted to kind of reinforce her observations. Thank you.
So an anonymous attendee keeps asking if principals participated in any of the professional development, and they did participate in all of them. So I just wanted to note that because it seems to be a pressing question and they participated in all of them. Okay, Mr. Ramirez.
Hi. So I'm Manny Ramirez. I live at 210 Sheridan Street in Northeastern. I'm an OA.
Patience.
Yeah, no worries. I know there's a lot of people. I'm an alum of OA from the class of 2015. Both of my brothers also graduated from OA, and my dad currently works at OA as a custodian. So clearly, Dr. Cabral, you understand that the Easton Public Schools are grossly underfunded, and so what I wanted to say just very briefly and also frankly is that I will know, and other OA alumni like myself who are concerned with these issues will know, that the Easton Public Schools are committed to developing anti-racist training for teachers and a strong anti-racist curriculum if and only if top officials like yourself and all other members of the school committee call for the diversion of significant amounts of funding from the Easton Police toward the school system. Until I hear that from you all, I can't take seriously your commitment to these measures, and I'll tell you why. There's no reason why over $4.3 million need to be allocated to the police department in Easton's 2020 budget in a town in which from 2014 to 2018, there were only 9.2 violent crimes per 10,000 people. That's less than a 0.1% chance of becoming a victim. Meanwhile, the level of town funding for all health and community services combined is less than a quarter of the funds allocated to the police department. People might ask, but if we take money away from the Easton Police, they won't get the training they need. Besides, our cops haven't done anything wrong. Well, it's patently false that our cops haven't done anything wrong. At the Black Lives Matter protest this week, we heard from Jonathan, a Black youth in Easton who was profiled by Easton Police as a heroin dealer simply for being Black. So clearly, all those $4.3 million allocated to the Easton Police for training have not prevented them from profiling Black youth in the town of Easton. Each incident of profiling is one mistake away from these police officers potentially murdering Black youth in Easton. We cannot continue to reward the Easton Police for profiling Black youth in Easton with millions of dollars of more funding. As well, over the past week, I've talked with a lot of Black OA alums and other alums of color about their experiences in the school system. So there's clearly a lot of work to be done in the schools that we can finance many times over by taking any fraction of the police department's budget and redirecting it into the schools. That's why I want to see you, Dr. Cabral, and all other members of the school committee and everyone else attending this call at the finance committee meeting tomorrow, calling for the diversion of funds away from the Easton Police Department and into the schools. Thanks for letting me speak.
Sure. Thank you for your comment. I work very closely with all of the departments in town as a department head, and I have to have as much confidence in Chief Sullivan's ability to tell us what his department needs as I expect him to have for me. in advocating for the school department. So if there is more funding that is desired from residents, it is up to the residents to determine what it is they would like to pay for. But in terms of whether I will comment on another department, that is up to the town administrator. And I think that if you have questions for the police department, I would encourage you to reach out to them, because I can't address that properly. And I would feel very uncomfortable if either the police chief or the fire chief or the DPW director were to speak on behalf of the school department. I would think that that would be really, that would be grossly inappropriate. And so I don't feel like we should speak on statistics, which I'm sure you did a great amount of research on that, but I am not aware of those statistics and I can't speak to them. I can advocate for the school department, which I do, and I'm happy to answer any questions about the school department that I can. We will be present at the meeting tomorrow, and I will be advocating for the schools as usual.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to stop the discussion here. We're going to enter into executive session shortly, but if you have a question and it hasn't been answered, I want you to email Chrissy, Dr. Cabral, who should they email?
I think they should email you, and you can send it to me, because my email is basically shutting down right now from,
Okay,
I don't want to miss
if
anything.
you have more questions, email me, NDELUCA at easton.k12.ma.us. And at this time, I'm going to make a motion that we enter into executive session, not to return, sorry, we will return after a short executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining for the Easton Educators Association, Units A, B, and Paraprofessionals, and the Southeastern Public Employees Association, Secretarial, Clerical Unit, Food Service Unit, and Custodial Unit. Do I have a second?
Wiseman, second.
All those in favor?
O'Neill, yes.
Durant, yes.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
And I do want to thank everybody that has participated and was going to participate. Chrissy, you had your hand up.
Can I just, before Chrissy speaks, can I just say that there was a participant, Claudia Ferrara,
That's what I was just going to say. Yeah.
that has been patiently waiting, and I would encourage Ms. Ferrara to please write to you at the email you just gave, and we will be sure to answer her question, because she has been very patient. Unfortunately, this was not an agenda item, and so typically we make things an agenda item because people who are interested in the topic should have the opportunity to be able to listen, learn from the conversation, and participate. So we just want to be fair in terms of the open meeting laws. And perhaps it's something we revisit in the future, for sure.
Can I just add too that Raising Multicultural Kids is having a meeting next Tuesday, and that there will be EPS leadership there if people want to continue this discussion next Tuesday at 6 p.m.
Yes, thank you for that.
And lastly, I just want to add that I encourage everyone to stay for the budget conversation.
Yes.
We will be ducking out for a minute, but then coming back because this is all directly related, and I think it's important that everyone understands what our budget situation is.
Yes, unfortunately, what happens is people are very engaged in singularity sometimes, and they don't see the bigger picture and how things are connected. And I think it's very important. We're trying to get the information out in the budget as much as we possibly can. And if you are truly concerned about the budgeting of the Easton Public Schools, I really hope there are more than the typical 3 people at the budget conversation that we're going to have.
Okay, so we will be back shortly.
Chrissy, can you let Jen in? Oh, Jen's there. And Nancy was on attendee too.
I got them.
Thank you. Oops, Jesus. Thank you.
Whenever you're ready, I think we're all here.
Okay. Welcome back to open session of the Easton School Committee meeting of Tuesday, June 9th. Next up is the budget update and possible vote. Dr. Cabral.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen with you here. Okay, so I'm just going to revisit what we discussed last week, the budget change memorandum from the town, June 2nd. There has since been an update. I'm going to go over that on a later slide, but these were just things that we discussed last week about things that had implications on our budget, losses in state revenue, local receipts, and so forth. We had already brought our budget from 4% down to 2%. Since that time, we have reduced it further, and I'll talk about what some of those items were. But just to go back for a moment, I went over this quickly because we're frankly off the chart with this year. However, I did refer to this earlier in the open session, so I thought I would just make a note of it. You can find this information on our website as well. This is how we identify where we are and what we are presenting for our budgets. As a school district, we do this activity every year. And so as a district, we have reactive and essential needs that we have itemized and we have a dollar figure for. We did that for proactive, and we also did that for strategic. So we have the vision in the district, we have the potential, we have the capacity of our professional staff, but we don't have the funding. And at this point, because obviously of the situation that the town has been in the last several years with a structural deficit, but combined with the massive loss of the state revenue, we are now in a fully regressive budget, which means we're reducing or eliminating staff and resources, and we are going backwards in terms of our development and the strategy that we work very hard to prepare every year. So the salary concessions that have ultimately been accepted by the school committee, one was not. The superintendent and assistant superintendent, we have conceded 2.5% of our salary for next year. The cabinet, which is made up of central office administration and principals, conceded 2%. Our food service workers, it's between 2 and 2.5%. They conceded to a full salary freeze. For some, it's a salary range because they have different positions, some managerial and some food service. And so it ranges between 2 and 2.5% per employee. The central office secretarial staff conceded 1.5% of their salary. Unit B, which is made up of assistant principals, the special education coordinators, and the director of guidance, conceded 1% of their salary. The paraprofessionals and secretarial clerical units each conceded 1 day, one work day. And so we will realize the savings of 1 work day for those employees. Unit A made a concession proposal of a professional development day. The Unit A staff right now has 2 professional development days per year. And while the school committee in no way minimizes their perception of the professionalism and capacity of this unit, as we have talked about often, they are phenomenal and they are what really helps make this district successful. The school committee strongly felt the need to safeguard the funding for this professional development day, since they only have 2, with the uncertainty of what's coming, to be able to appropriately support these professionals. They've had many calls from the public for professional development and training in many ways, again, as we saw in the prior open session, and they just want to make sure that they are appropriately prepared for the tremendous challenges that lie ahead. And so they have chosen to fund that professional development day to be able to support these professionals, and the custodial unit proposed a 0% concession and no other alternatives. So this is where we stand now. We have incorporated this into the budget, and that's what you'll see this evening. We have eliminated several positions in the district. You can see they account to 16.75 or FTE. Some people are part-time, as you'll see. At the Parkview School, we have eliminated the half-day kindergarten, the half-day pre-kindergarten class, a grade 1 position, a special education learning specialist. At Center School, the half-day kindergarten program is going to be eliminated at both, you'll see, Center and Moreau. And as a reminder, what we will do is, if we did not have a tremendous amount of children, and certainly couldn't have had 2 classes full, but what we're going to do, because we are mandated by state law, we have to provide a half-day alternative for students if we don't provide full free-day kindergarten. We do not at this point. And so we are eliminating the half day for next year, and students who parents who choose to have their children stay in a half day kindergarten program will attend for half the day and then go home. So we'll have to work on some creative programming there to make sure that those students get what they need in that half day. We're also eliminating a kindergarten teaching position at Center and a grade 2 teaching position. At Moreau Hall is the other half day kindergarten program. Also a grade 1 teacher. At Richardson Olmsted, we're eliminating a grade 4 teacher and a grade 5 teacher. Now, from grades pre-K to 5, what that results in, of course, are slightly larger class sizes. So we have worked very hard for the last several years to minimize the number of students in classes to make sure that with the elevation of the social emotional needs, the requirements, even the things that we talked about today that are very complex and very different than in the past, we have added to the programming for all students. And so minimizing the number of students makes it a much more surmountable task for our professionals. And so we're moving in a different direction, and we are creating slightly larger class sizes for next year. Oliver Ames Industrial Arts Program, we will still have an industrial arts program, but we're eliminating 1 position. That one is through attrition as a result of a retirement. And then we have ABA or behavioral techs in the district. We are eliminated 3 of those positions. We eliminated 4 paraprofessional positions. The 4 paraprofessional opinions, again, are through attrition. And we've reduced a position of one of our custodians by 0.25. We also added a couple of things, again, because of enrollment, and that was at Moreau Hall, we had a very large grade 2 class sizes. Because the 3 elementary schools pre-K to 2 are in 3 different buildings, it is more difficult for us to spread out the number of students. And so we had to add while we may have been able to absorb them if all of our second graders were together, like they will be in the future at the Blanche Ames Elementary School, right now that is more difficult for us to do. So we had to add a grade 2 at Moreau Hall to avoid having class sizes, close to 30. At the middle school, same thing. They had a large incoming class for grade 6, so we're added a grade 6 teacher. And Oliver Ames, we had to mitigate the loss of the elective courses for students who chose industrial arts. And so we have found that there's very high demand for media, but there's a 0.6 teacher or 3 days a week or, the equivalent of that. And so we are increasing that by 0.4. It is still a loss from a full-time industrial arts teacher, but it helps to mitigate that, and it does respond to the demand of student requests. And then the only new position in the district is, so these positions here, these 3 are current employees who may be moving from one of these positions for grade 2 and 6. And then the .4 media is adding to a person. The only new person we're adding, because with the state of the budget, we really had a difficult time adding anybody, of course. And so we just had to stand firm with the Therapeutic Learning Center School Adjustment Counselor at Richardson Olmsted. These special education programs are extremely important for helping make sure that we serve our most sensitive students in their community school with their peers and creating the most least restrictive environment for them. It ultimately saves us money by not sending them out of district also. But we feel as though in order for this to work successfully for our students, if we are going to keep them in the district, we do need to make sure that they're served appropriately. And so we had a school adjustment counselor that was working part-time between literally running back and forth between the middle school and Richardson Olmsted. And we felt that the one that was currently in place needs to stay at the middle school, and we need to hire someone for Richardson Olmsted. This is a critical need program, and we feel as though this professional needs to be in the building full-time. So that is one position we did add this year, and those are the reasons for that. Ultimately, it results in this proposal. For FY20, that's last year's budget, was $42.3 million. Just the rollover of contractual obligations in terms of our vendors, transportation, legal, wastewater treatment plant, et cetera, as well as our collective bargaining obligations, it was an additional almost 4%. And so in order to get to a level funded budget, it's definitely not level service. So we had to cut approximately 4%. Our June 1st proposal was at $43.2 million. Again, that was a 4% increase over FY20. We then cut $576,800 and came up with the new proposal last week, which was $42.6 million. Since last week, with those concessions we received from the units, which we are extremely grateful for, and with the additional eliminations of positions to total the page I just shared with you, we saved an additional $270,000. So we cut over $847,000 from what we felt we needed to start this year at what already was going to be a regressive budget. So when I say we're off the chart, I mean we're literally below regressive by almost $850,000. This means this evening what you would be voting on is a budget for FY, that's actually an incorrect figure, I apologize. It's 42.6 million. 42.663, I have to get you the exact figure. And that represents a 0.63 increase over FY20. The exact figure is 42 million. I wrote on it. I'll have to get it for you. Our Director of Finance, Marilyn Gordon, is also here, so she can, I can just get it from another spreadsheet. I just didn't want to make you wait. $42,633,952. $42,633,952. That's the figure you would be voting on, which represents an increase of 0.6, just over 0.6 from FY20. If we do go down to zero in order to be level funded, we would have to cut another 270,000 from the budget. Are there any questions?
Okay, so no questions and no comments from anyone. Are there any? Okay, so at this time, we need to vote on a $42,633,952 budget. At this-
633, I think.
Excuse me?
I think it's 633. You said 632, but I think it's 633, 952.
$3,952. Okay. And unfortunately, it seems like every year we're cutting, but it is what it is. So I need a motion to accept this budget unless anybody has any questions. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Durant.
Wiseman, second.
All those in favor, unfortunately.
O'Neill,
Nancy.
yes. Oh, go ahead.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Nancy, I don't mean to interrupt. There is somebody who raised her hand and has a question. I don't know if we can take that from the public right now, but I just wanted to alert you.
All right,
I
so,
just have to stop sharing my screen so I can get to that.
so who's got the question?
It's from Hannah. So I don't know if, so the Q&A just says that she has a question and her hand is raised.
Okay, so who does that? Who's
Do you
looking at the?
Do you want Hannah to speak or write a question? That's up to you.
She can speak, that's fine, or somebody can read her question.
There's no question. It says I have a question.
Okay, she can speak. I don't know. So is somebody on that? I don't know how to do
She's
it.
coming in right now.
Oh, okay.
Hi, I was wondering, given previous statements from the public about the necessity to move funds from the police to the school district, if we vote on the budget tonight, would that be set in stone before the finance committee tomorrow, or is there any way to stall this budget vote so that we can have the public engage on the idea of reallocating funds from the police department into the school budget?
Ultimately, the school committee's vote goes to the town and the town administrator puts the budget together. So that would be a question for the town administrator.
Right.
So,
Wait a minute, what is your full name? I'm sorry.
Hannah Toe, 148 Randall Street.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yes, so once you submit this budget, is it set in stone or is there still time for public comment after during like the finance committee section, for example, or would there be another school committee meeting for revisions in the budget?
This represents the vote of the school committee. This then goes to the, ultimately the taxpayers. If you are a resident and you are a taxpayer, the taxpayers decide what the budget is. So this ultimately goes to town meeting. This is the recommendation of the school committee. So they vote for what they are advocating for the school department. It goes forward for consideration and then ultimately goes to town meeting. And it is taxpayers who determine what gets paid out of the town budget.
Okay.
Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you.
Okay, so right now we're going to vote on the budget. We've had a motion and a second, so roll call.
O'Neill, yes.
Durant, yes.
Luca, yes.
Wiseman, yes. And I just wanted to say, I think the reason none of us have been asking questions at this round is because we've been working on this budget for months and we knew what was coming.
Thank you, Jackie.
Good point.
Yeah, those meetings are recorded.
Jen, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Star, yes. And Jackie, thank you for commenting on that.
Sorry.
Okay.
Those meetings are recorded, and if anybody wishes to see the prior meetings, they're always accessible on ECAP.
But Leisha, in addition, we've had to do some of the discussion in executive session because it involved contract negotiations.
Right, all of the concessions by the units had to be accepted by the school committee. In some cases, counter proposals were offered and it was a process, so it's part of negotiations.
But those discussions in executive session, of course, are not recorded.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Sad, but it's true. COVID-19 update, Dr. Cabral.
So I just had, I don't know if you want me to share my screen again, but I just had the same slide from last week when I had discussed the seven committees that we are working on in the district. We are very much, people are asking if we've thought about the fall. We are very much thinking about the fall. We're got a lot going on right now, but that's certainly also a priority. And we have these 7 working groups. The only one that has met so far is the facilities and supplies, because that is the only guidance we've received from the state so far. So again, I just want to clarify a misconception at the public level. It seems that there were a lot of social media posts and news reports that the commissioner had disseminated his guidance for returning to school in the fall. That is actually incorrect. That's factually incorrect. We're in constant communication with the commissioner. In fact, we have a phone call with him tomorrow, and he released guidance, which he told us he was going to release, on the supplies and how to calculate how many supplies you would need for students. And that was released. As part of that guidance, because it was about supplies, he did talk about furniture and how many desks might be needed if you were to keep them 6 feet apart with 10 students in a classroom. That's the only reference he made, but he meant it in reference to supplies. Because that was information that was disseminated to superintendents, he also sent clarification with that. And of course, we were on a call with him as well. So we were aware that he said that's where we are today. That's very different from where we may be in the fall. That guidance, he very clearly told us, was not coming out until mid or late June. And that's what we advised you last week. That guidance is not out yet. He even said that when the guidance comes out, it may have to change before September because they have real-time analysis of what's going on. The virus rules, as I've said before, and we have to make sure that we follow recommendations from the CDC, our local Board of Health, and of course the commissioner. So the only other information that came out was for summer school. And again, that's likely to be different than what is happening in the fall. In Easton, our extended school year work is almost entirely happening remotely. So we didn't really publish that information broadly because it doesn't really apply to us. We may have some in-person therapies and so forth when we determine that a student will be best served in that manner and can be done safely. But the special services department is going through all of that right now. By and large, just about every student who's in the extended school year program will be engaging in remote work. We made that decision early on out of a preponderance of caution. We are asking people not to get very excited about the fall because we don't know what it's going to bring. As we've been saying, that we have been preparing for a hybrid model, not because we've been told there will be a hybrid model and not because we necessarily believe there will be a hybrid model. The reason we are preparing for a hybrid model is because it has the 2 components that would cover any scenario. It, for example, covers a physical repopulation of the buildings, and so we are considering that. And it also covers remote learning. If we prepare for both of those, whether we're 100% physically in the buildings, 100% remote learning, or there is some sort of combination of the 2, we will be prepared. And so that is how we've chosen to go forward. So facilities and supplies is, again, the only group that has met, and it was just to determine numbers of things for schools, talking about the physical structures, things like that. There is a teaching and learning subcommittee. There is a technology subcommittee. We have to keep track of all of the technology that left and is coming back and what students might need going forward. Another point I want to mention is we need to be prepared anyway for remote learning, because even if we go back to school full-time in September, we are all aware that there is a possibility, until there is an effective treatment for this virus, there is a possibility this could happen again in the future, perhaps next winter or next spring, and we want to be prepared if that is the case. We have a communications and outreach workforce or task force or working group. We also have, Chrissy, help me remember the rest because I don't have it written down. You're muted.
Chrissy.
I hit the wrong button, sorry. I have them pulled up right here.
Yep.
We have communication and outreach, teaching and learning, technology, special education, health and wellness, which includes social emotional learning,
And physical.
finances and personnel, and facilities and supplies.
Yeah, so we separated special education and physical and social emotional wellness because we are aware that those are two very huge topics. We want to make sure our special education population is really focused on and that they receive appropriate compensatory and equitable services. And we also know that there's a lot, it's not just situation, there's this situation. There are a lot of things going on in the lives of our students right now. And we have had significant social emotional challenges prior to them. And so we are anticipating needing to support them. So that basically is the update. We do not have any other information. Anything that people have read about is purely conjecture at this point. And we don't want to really be chasing those things because we have enough, honestly, to work on with these subcommittees. We feel as though with these working groups, we have covered the major areas. Each of them have many, many components to them. We believe we've covered the major areas for a safe reopening and repopulation regardless of what comes at us. We will adapt it and do what we always do and provide the very best to our students. Beyond that, I really can't conjecture because we just don't know yet. I will need some time before we can do that. We have some questions. I don't know if you want to.
I have a question before you go there. What's going to happen with grab and go? Is that done next Monday?
It is. What we have done, that's a great question. So the grab and go that she's referring to is our grab and go food program. Since we got out of school, I think we had just a couple of days where we didn't provide food. We very quickly had that organized and working very well. We've served up to 70 meals each time, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Students are getting meals now 7 days a week, breakfast and lunch. Not just students, we've increased that to include all children. We know that there is still a need. However, we are no longer eligible for the funding that was used for that, and we do not have the resources to provide that. It was going to cost $13 a month through the summer, and we don't have that available to us.
13,000.
13,000 a month.
Okay, you said $13. Yeah. I'll give you $13.
$13,000.
I'll give you that. All right, go ahead.
And so what we have done though, before we had decided to abandon that, we wanted to make sure that our students would be appropriately served. So we've reached out to some neighboring districts. We're finalizing that, so I can't announce it just yet. But we have 2 that we are working with that will accept our students. They just literally need to show up and they will get food from their programs throughout the summer. We also are putting together resources for the last day of pickup, which will be Monday, where we can direct them, whether it's Easton Food Pantry or other resources where they can get food for their family. We have had great cooperation from there at Langwater Farm, for example. Families have been able to go get fresh produce and seafood. They can use their SNAP card, EBT cards. So we feel confident at this point that we have enough resources for everyone that they will be appropriately served if they wish to take advantage of that. So we, at this point, have decided we won't be having it in Easton through the summer.
And same thing for the food drive, the Monday food drive for the Easton Food Pantry?
Correct. The food pantry will still be open on Mondays and they are still accepting donations. They are in great need of donations. So we want to make sure people are not discouraged from doing that. Please contact the food pantry directly and they will graciously accept donations.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. All right, you said there was some questions coming in?
Yes.
Yes, we have about 6 questions.
Well, there's only 3 questions. People have listed names.
Oh, you're right. Sorry. Yep.
So Liz Bernstein from 31 Weldon Drive. Is it possible that the start date of school would be moved earlier in August as some colleges and universities are doing? And if so, when would that decision be made? the school committee determines the calendar. We usually do that in January of each year. We try to give as much lead time as possible for families, so that's been out for quite some time. It's the call of the school committee whether they want to change that at all. We do have contractual obligations though, and this year we did start really as early as we could. We would have to renegotiate with the Unit A professionals. They have it in their contract that they don't start before a particular date before Labor Day, and we're at the limit of that right now. So it would involve more than just a conversation of school committee. If they desired, we would have to renegotiate that before they could make a change if they were so inclined. They meaning you. So if you have a comment on that, please don't let me speak for you. Philip Penelator, when will we hear the schedule regarding summer school? The summer school extended year program, I believe that information either has gone out or it's being finalized right now. The Director of Special Services is working on that. They were working on it today, actually, when I called. So I think they have that finalized. They've hired their staff. They've identified students. I think they have over 100 students that are going to be participating in that. You certainly can reach out to the special education department if there are more questions about that. And how will IEP's testing be done remotely? All right, I think if the question is about screening or testing for IEPs, they are actually working on that as well. They are they have decided that there are many things that can't be done remotely. Some things can be. We've held many successful IEP meetings, for example, but there are some assessments that the school psychologists and special education department have determined they would rather do in person. Excuse me. And so they have been working on that. They're getting protective equipment and things like that to make sure that they can do that safely and within CDC guidelines. So they will be able to answer any questions about an individual child or particular assessments that they're having. If they don't feel that it can be done successfully remotely, they will do those in person. Those are some of the things that they are prioritizing that I referred to earlier for the summer. I hope that answered that question.
Okay, that's it on those.
I don't see any others right now.
And just to comment on the schedule, I don't think we have enough information yet, either from the state or powers that be, Governor Baker, about what's school even going to look like in August and September. So I don't think we can even look at the schedule at this point. Anybody else can chime in. I just want to throw my 2 cents in. Anybody have any comments or anything? All right. No. Okay. So that's COVID-19 update. Okay. Next. Oh, is there a question? Okay. School activities update. Dr. Cabral.
So I don't think we have any activities update unless you have particular questions about anything. We've basically been working on the 2 topics that have already been discussed this evening and the budget. So I think I've given the updates on the status of those. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to elaborate.
At this point, have the students picked up their things and the teachers have cleaned out their rooms so that the custodians can get in and do what they need to do?
The custodians have been in the whole time. And they are starting even some of their summer work now and some repairs. But the schools have successfully had the teachers go back in and collect their belongings, the students. There may be a school that's finishing that. I think the middle school, I think, might be doing that this week. So I know
RO is doing that this week.
RO is doing it.
OA is still working on it as well.
Okay, yeah, so they were all at different places. OA, for example, started with the seniors and so on. So they're all at different places. Some of them strategically placed it at the end of the year on purpose so that they could make sure that everybody could get all their materials and get out in time, like you said, for the summer work to get started. But so far, it's gone very successfully, and we are very happy with each plan. We had each individual school, as we discussed in prior meetings, because of the physical layout of the buildings, because of the number of students, because of the difference between what a small child would have to pick up and a high school student who maybe plays an instrument and plays sports, for example. It was very different. So we asked the schools to come up with individual plans, and they did a phenomenal job with appropriate social distancing. Some of them incorporated some very special celebrations. What I'm hearing mostly is the professional staff just talking about how nice it was for them to see their kids. They missed them very, very much. And while we couldn't have all of them there because of the social distancing that's required, they were extremely excited to see students, and some of them, you know, were able to make signs and wave and make a little bit of an event for them. So I'm very, very appreciative of the administrators and their teams for all the work that they did on that. And things have gone very smoothly and very well, to my knowledge.
Right. And Michelle or Jen, you can probably help me. Tomorrow night on ECAT is class night. Go ahead, Michelle.
I had that for my notes. Tomorrow night at 8 o'clock on ECAT or Comcast channel 97 or Verizon channel 24.
So we pre-recorded that and have not seen it yet, so that should be interesting. But it was interesting trying to look at a crowd that wasn't there, like you were looking at a crowd. But we got it done. We got it done, and I think it will be very interesting for people to watch. We have some very, very talented students, and we are extremely proud of them and all of their accomplishments. So I look forward to hearing you know, people hearing their names and seeing things that were said about them, and it just was very nice. So that is that's Wednesday?
Tomorrow.
Oh, it's tomorrow. My gosh. Okay. It
Tomorrow
seems far away to me because it's over for us. And then yeah, so the end of year activities are pretty much happening now. I will say, I know this is really Chrissy's domain, but I will just jump in and say that we did make, you know, the last day of school is going to be a connection between all staff and students. So we felt it was extremely important that there is an actual reach out and a connection, that the pre-K through 12, I believe, all of them. Is that correct, Chrissy? Pre-K through 12, they will all be having reach outs. In fact, students at the high school go through their schedule so that they can see all their teachers. So that should be a very nice tie up to the school year.
Thank you. Okay. I see that there's a question in it. I know we had public comment earlier, but if there's one more question that somebody can reach or look at.
Yep, Hannah Toe, 148 Randall Street. Given documented instances of the Easton PD profiling Black youth, can you share what anti-bias, anti-racist training resource officers undergo? Will the schools make resource officers independent of police? School resource officers are not independent of police. They are active members of the police department that are supervised by the police department. I do not have hiring authority over a resource officer. We do not have a full-time resource officer. We have a resource officer that we share with our 6 schools and Southeastern Regional Vocational. So we have a resource officer half-time for our 6 schools. They do go through extensive school resource officer training. Again, we are not involved with that. That is something that it's actually a national program that they participate in through the police department. So that would be more, actually, it's online. The training is online. If you are interested in that school resource officer program, it's a national program, as I said, and any specific questions about the resource officer for the Easton Police Department can be directed to the police department because they are an employee of that department.
Thank you. All right. Next up, superintendent notes. Dr. Cabral.
I have no further notes tonight.
Okay. Assistant superintendent notes.
I just wanted to share that we are in our last full week of remote learning. You know, I think back to 3 months ago and think about who would have thought that we would be in this situation? I am so proud of our teachers, our staff members, our paraprofessionals, every staff member for all that they have put in to build the plane as we fly it. You know, I know I've referenced that before, and this is truly what they have done. They've done a remarkable job. I will let the public know that we will be leaving up our remote learning plans for the summer. If anybody is interested in continuing work over the summer and wants to review any of the plans, maybe I know, for example, K through 5, or PK through 5, there were suggested activities and you could choose one. You may want to go back and review, or simply take a break. I know that there are many families out there that just need a break, and that is understandable as well. I just want to thank our families for their support during this time and understanding that we were learning as we were going. And, you know, like Dr. Cabral had stated in the before, we are looking for the guidance to come out from the commissioner, and we will spend the summer planning to ensure that we have the best educational opportunities for our students come the fall. So thank you, everyone, and school committee, please, thank you so much for all of your support as well. And thank you to our staff, they're amazing. And I just want to also our principals really led the charge on this as far as meeting with teams and supporting them. And I just really want to give them a lot of credit for their remarkable leadership throughout all of this. So thank you to them as well.
Thank you. That's it?
That's it. We do have 2 questions.
Okay, go ahead.
Andrew Abramson, 4 Flint Lane. Is it possible for the school committee to require that the school resource officer undergo the same bias and anti-racist training that teachers go through?
So we offer all of our training to every employee that walks in our building, including the school resource officer. And I believe he did attend the training, but we offer all of it free of charge.
And Liz Bornstein, will any communication be coming from the particular schools about whether grade level standards have been met, or will material from this year still need to be covered next fall? To clarify, I know there are power standards, but I haven't heard about specific grade content information. So I can, go ahead, Dr. Cabral, did you want to answer that?
Go right ahead.
No, I was just going to share that PK through 5, we are not sending end of year report cards home. We feel that the parents know how their children have been doing for participation. Our 6 through 12, they will be receiving report cards. As far as the power standards, those power standards have been covered. We recognize that come the fall, we will need to go back and definitely have we'll need to have some baseline assessments to see where our students are, and then go back and help with reviewing the previous year's standards. So typically in a school year, September is a time of review. There are pretty much about 3 weeks in the elementary classroom, middle school classroom, where there is a lot of review going on, and even at the high school level as well. That whether that's extended or not, that will all be determined by our teaching and learning committee as we prepare for reopening, and as directed by the guidance from the commissioner.
Okay, is that it for questions from?
That's all.
Okay. School committee notes. Caroline, you're first.
Well, I just wanted to say how much admiration and respect I have for the young people who put together the peaceful march and protest on Sunday. I know that Michelle and Jen attended, and I'm sure they'll have more to say. I wasn't able to attend, but I did want to just recognize how much I am impressed by the students who did put it together, and in a short period of time drew well over 500 people in, sleepy little Easton. I think it's so impressive, and it's really a tribute to those youngsters, and it gives me so much hope. I know that it was a shocking and terribly upsetting event that brought about this protest, the killing of George Floyd, and of course, ongoing racism that has just permeated every corner of our world. But I think that it's extremely hopeful that these young people are tackling this issue with great enthusiasm and with some wonderful ideas. That's all.
Thank you, Caroline. Michelle, you're next.
I did talk about the senior class night, and I also want to say caps and gowns were hand delivered to students, seniors today. That was really cool. And I'll really agree with Caroline, and I'm sure Jen will talk about it a little bit more, but the march this past weekend was just amazing. It was very well put together. The speakers that spoke really spoke from their heart and with sincerity and just the passion that the attendees and the people speaking, it just was a very moving, it's hard to put it into words. But I was really glad that I went and I was part of that. And I hope that that momentum continues. And you can see it continuing because the people who showed up tonight to engage in conversation and had very thoughtful, purposeful, respectful conversations with us, and the community members who joined us. Kelly Lamb, Matt Auger, who's a teacher, and Liz Bornstein, who are all represent this network that works with the school department and works with the community to address these issues and get them out there and get people talking about them and finding solutions. And I just wanted to acknowledge that, and I appreciate that they all came here and were part of it tonight.
Thank you. I just have a couple things. First of all, I don't know if you've been able to look at it, but the virtual art show, fabulous. Oh my gosh, those kids are so talented. Thank you, Jen and Michelle, for going on Sunday to the march. And again, reiterating what Chrissy said, thank you to the EPS staff, everybody, and also to EPS students. I think on June 16th, everybody's going to throw their Chromebook out the window because they're sick of looking at a screen. But
not the school ones, please.
Don't do that if it's the school
Oh
ones.
my gosh.
I know. And the parents.
We need them desperately.
I'm only kidding. And the parents who have just been marvelous about, you know, working and teaching and being the moms and dads, and just it's I'm glad Monday's going to be the last day. So even though it was a weird year, I believe we have the people that were involved have made it successful. Okay, Jackie.
We do have a question just when you have a minute.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Just Barbara Fox for Wilson, any word on grade 10 MCAS? So our grade 10 MCAS, for grade 10 students, they will be taking them next year. That is what the commissioner has stated as of now.
Who will take them next year?
The
grade 10 students, they didn't take him this year. He canceled them.
So they're going to take them as grade 11?
Yes.
Correct.
And the grade 10, so there's 2 classes at the high school that will be taking the grade 10 test. Okay.
Yes.
But what about not all the other grades, just grade 10?
Correct.
No.
Yes. Because it's high school. Yeah. Because
okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Good question. All right, Jackie.
Thank you, Nancy. I just want to echo what everyone said so far. I'm very happy to see the efforts the school department is continuing to make and the relationship with HRC and RMK. You know, we need all these people's participation. It's great to see the students' participation. And this is what really keeps us going forward, is to have everyone speaking up. And we really appreciate that and want that to continue. I also want to thank the teachers and the administrators for all their work over this last, 3 years, it seems like. It has been very difficult, I think, on a lot of families. And it's been imperative that we've had their help and their assistance and their guidance through this period. So I hope they all have a very restful summer, and thank you.
Jen,
Yes, so I totally echo Jackie on, I gotta tell you, in my house, we're counting down the days. We can't wait for Monday. You know, and just really so much appreciation for the teachers who are following up relentlessly, which is something that's needed, at least for part of my household. So they're doing a really great job reaching out and trying to help kids succeed as much as they can during this really, really difficult learning environment. So much appreciation for that. Back to what's been mentioned about the gathering earlier this week. So much credit to the students who organized and pulled that together and worked with various stakeholders in town to make it run smoothly. I'm sure there was a crash course in how to organize and pulled it off beautifully. All of the speakers were so moving. Your words were raw and real and honest, and they hit home. And there were a lot of people in the audience from the education community. So I know it's hard to tell with masks on, but as mentioned, there were school committee members there. There were building leaders there. There were lots of teachers there. So we heard you. We got that messaging loud and clear. And as mentioned earlier, for anybody who was on earlier, there's been a lot of work done in the district over recent years, but it just echoed that this is critically important. It's something that we continue to need to dedicate resources to, both in terms of time and funding, even when we're constrained as we are with such a difficult situation. There are a lot of people here who may not have ever engaged in town government before. So thank you for being here. This is how it works. So we want to let you know also that everybody in this town who makes a hiring decision at some point rolls up to somebody who was elected. So if you want change, if you want to hold leadership accountable, it starts with the ballot box. It starts with town meeting. So that's the power of democracy, especially in small town government. It's a very direct relationship. So with that in mind, there is a town meeting on June 22nd that will be held at the Ames Sports Complex at Stonehill. My understanding is that the select board and those who are organizing are working very hard to make that as safe a social distance event as possible. That's why it's moving there instead of being held in a smaller venue. So we encourage people who feel comfortable going and want to see the process to please come. This is how the budget gets finalized. And then also Saturday, June 27th is local elections. So that's how school committee members, finance committee members, select board, and other positions get where they are. And there is, you can vote by mail. The application is online on the town website. So you can go ahead, you don't have to show up on Saturday the 27th if you prefer to just vote in person. But you do need to get on that quickly for anybody who does want to vote by mail, just to allow time for the application to come to you and for you to mail it back. So that's it.
thank you. Chrissy, is there another question?
Yeah, one more. Again, from Barbara Fox. I think it was a follow-up on the grade 10 MCAS. She asked, how will that work with geometry? I'm not exactly sure what that means. Maybe you can email me directly, or email Mr. Paul or Mary Romans, our math department head.
Okay,
And
thank you.
I'll just add the reminder about the census, because it's just so critical. And you may mention it, Nancy, but I think mentioning it twice is important. It is directly related to our funding, and we can't talk about money and funding without talking about the census. It doesn't seem like it's related. We need you to go online and complete your census. We need you to tell your neighbors. We need you to tell your friends. We need to tell you to tell your parents and your grandparents. They have to go on and complete the census. It is a very short amount of time online. It can be done right in your home very easily. It helps us get the funding that we need. We have found that we are not getting funding that we should be getting based on our demographics. And it has been hurting us tremendously in conjunction with many other things to create this perfect storm that we're in right now. So something that you can do right now, if you want to assist with the funding in Easton, is fill out the census as completely and honestly as you can, please.
Okay, thank you. Our next meeting is June 18th. And we will get that agenda out as soon as possible. Thank you, everybody. I want to thank everybody that joined us, and of course the committee members and Marilyn and Lynn and ECAT. Just thanks everybody for making the team a team. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Wiseman, so moved.
O'Neill second.
Okay, all those in favor?
O'Neill, yes.
Durant, yes.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
You on June 18th.
Thank you.
Good night.
Night, everybody.
Right.